Hi, my name's George Maddox, and I was on the engineering security team in 2019. The job as I saw it was to work with other teams to work out how sensitive the data they're working with was, so that we could think about how best to look after it. We ran regular threat modeling sessions and encouraged the other teams to understand what's called their attack surface of their services. Also working with wider business and our team stakeholders to understand some of the threats the engineering team was having to deal with and the trade-offs involved in dealing with them, plus alerting the stakeholders about any new threats we find. We also coded and built tools to manage things like NPM vulnerabilities and help other teams do so as well. At the time, it felt quite different from previous product development roles. There was a much stronger sort of ambassadorial element, trying to set a good example, but I still felt like an engineer and spoke the language of product development. I think it was good to be able to bring that perspective, instead of coming off as someone from another department bringing, diktats. On a practical level, there was a lot of coding, refactoring, documentation, diagramming, a lot of work to understand the state of things as it was so that we could make sure we had a good security coverage. The things I learned in the team were, a lot more about individual security threats like the OWASP Top 10, very useful for my career going forward, I think. I got a real new appreciation for just how many threats exist, what we as developers can take for granted, and the task of weighing and assessing those threats against the cost of addressing them within a rapid development context, which we had at TES. All about trying to be agile and how do you incorporate security? Well, regular threat modeling, documentation, but a dose of realism so you don't end up wasting time on highly unlikely threats, but you do spend a lot of time on things that really matter. The effect I, as a member of the team, had in hindsight was I think I helped us significantly scale down and manage our NPM vulnerabilities, which I'm quite proud of. I helped to encourage a more proactive security culture within the wider team. Emphasizing security is everyone's responsibility, not just one person's, someone else's, or no one's even. Also my experience in understanding the TES's authentication services came in useful because those are obviously very security relevant. The things I learned and did differently after being on the team were to code more securely. I think it sounds simple, but it's easy to forget about basic attack vectors when so many libraries we work with, like React, for instance, they tell us don't worry too much because the library covers it. But we should always be keeping these things in our heads as developers, sanity checking everything. I got a new appreciation for documentation, as well as documentation of decisions, so that in 6 months' time you can understand why you did a security thing, because often it's not that obvious and you'd hate for people to get rid of it. So documentation is key, I think. Simple mantras like more than one step away from disaster we used a lot in the team, and those rules of thumb are going to be really useful in my career. The idea of always being more than one step away, more than one development mistake away from disaster, that is just great advice, and I think I will be always thinking about it in the future.